Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Coffee with Coaches podcast. I am your host, Kevin, and today I have with me April Qureshi. April is a certified leadership and life coach, award-winning entrepreneur, speaker, and best-selling co-author of 4 books. I'm not done. She is also a 3rd-degree black belt in aikido, a tough mudder, and a philanthropist, and I believe a tennis player. April is dedicated, above and beyond all of this, to the pursuit of leadership in contemporary society as a path to advancing our human experience. Have I swallowed you up enough? Have I blown enough air at you, April? Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I've just only been talking to you for like 10 minutes, but I studied you. I read up on you before the pod. You are amazing, and I'm really happy to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And you're even a cat lover, so you couldn't be more ideal of a guest for me.
There you go, right? That just says it all. So just for the dog lovers, I do love dogs as well.
Oh yeah. So. I don't discriminate. They have different aspects of my heart belong to them. Let's start at the start, begin at the beginning, so to speak. I sometimes call this my superhero origin story question.
Yes.
How did you come to realize that you either were already a coach or wanted to become a coach professionally? And then how did you go about starting your coaching business?
Yeah, so I like the way you put the superhero journey, because I'm really keyed into that right now as far as leadership identity. So how did I start as a coach? I started out being coached. And I think that's a common experience for people who are coaches, is that, I was coached and it made a significant impact on my life in a positive way. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I thought, how, being a helping type person, I thought, how can I use this? How can I bring this into the world and do this for other people? Right. And when I look back on my life, I realized that throughout my whole life, I've always had some kind of a coach or a mentor helping me all along the way. So whether that was, as a kid with my parents are a big influence on me, in sports. So having sports coaches, my martial arts sensei. We've been together for almost 30 years now as teacher-student relationship, which is phenomenal. And then, at work, right? So at work, I've always had a mentor to look up to, a mentor to help guide me. And so, it's like, so leadership is ultimately being a really good coach for people, right? And so really good coaches are actually really good leaders, in my book anyway. That's what I notice about the world. So people who are out there leading and who make a real positive impact on people, who can bring out other people's strengths, those, they have this natural instinct for coaching. And I thought, well, why not take some training? So I took some training and it was phenomenal. And I continue every year, I take some course or another. So I just finished the neuroscience of coaching course with Irene O'Brien, and it was fantastic. So learned a lot there. Last year, I studied positive intelligence with Hugo Alberts and positivepsychology.com. So continuing to always build on what I've learned, because there's always more to learn. And I think that's key in leadership as well, right? It's, being a leader means that you're willing to expand yourself, learn more, and ultimately pass that on to other people so that they can do the same. And like my bio says, it's like, I've been thinking about it, like, because we talk about mission, we talk about vision, like, oh, what's your why and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, well, when I look back, it's like, how can we elevate our human experience? Because that's ultimate to me. That's the ultimate, how in any small way, right? And so it's a big ask to elevate your human existence on this planet in this short amount of time.
Kind of a big one.
Yeah, but what I realize as I get older and perhaps a bit wiser is that any amount of effort or any amount of progress towards that is significant in the long run of, of humanity. And even if you don't think you're making an impact, you are, right? And so just the fact that you elevated yourself is sending out these positive ripples out into the world. So that's my why. That's why I do this. That's what gets me excited in the morning, gets me out of bed. And yeah, it's just, and so how do you do that, right? So how do you elevate yourself? And for some people, you have to be true to yourself. You have to look for the opportunities. And for me, one of those ways is sports. Like, I love sports. I love elevating through sport because it's a singular activity. I'm responsible for everything within that. And I know immediately, I have immediate feedback on my performance, and I have immediate feedback on my skills mastery. So for me, sports is an ultimate, it's an ultimate way to elevate, your existence and elevate your understanding of people and humanity in the world.
And such a good way to come to understand those principles and how they apply to every other aspect of your life. Like, people, honestly, like most people, when they think of a coach, they're going to have at least some element of sports thought. They're going to think of a coach for an athlete or a coach for a team. But then and this is something I've found to be true with a lot of coaches who have gone on to coach in other areas of life, is that they really take those lessons that they learned from organized sports and are like, okay, so what's actually happening here, and the way in which a coach can see things that you can't see yourself and can help you become more the thing that you want to be and you are, and how that can be, and how specific coaching can get, where they can say, a coach can look at you depending on the circumstance and be like, okay, we need to work on your X, we need to work on your Y or your Z, your posture, your position, where you put your feet, how you move, where you run, how you throw, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I love the way, just that understanding, the way it expands almost exponentially, because I find that I played some organized, well, not obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, I played some organized sports as a kid. I'm a 6'3" guy, so I did some football and some basketball when I was younger, and I wasn't quite coordinated enough to really make it work. But man, did I really get some life lessons that are still serving me today from that. And it really did also. And now that I've come across so many other kinds of coaches and coaching in life, I see now how it laid the foundation for how I can value it. And I just love that you identified a couple of core attributes that I find to be very present and, quite frankly, like blazing in most coaches I talk to. Pretty much everyone is that curiosity, that lifelong learner, where you're always adding, looking for more, growing your knowledge, growing your wisdom, and always looking for ways to give that back. Always looking for places that can move into, and where you could serve, where you can help, where you can add a little bit of light, where you can raise the level a little bit here, a little bit there. You said so much that got me so excited. I feel like I want to touch on it all. But yeah, that curiosity, I love how much that really is at the heart of a lot of a coach's passion and a coach's purpose.
Well, it's interesting because oh no, that's okay, because it's interesting what you say about curiosity and learning, right? And so what I notice out there in the world these days is that there's so much opportunity to learn. I mean, you can get an uncertified university education online for free right now, right? If you wanted to. Amazing. But here's the thing that stands out, right? So we can't just go and learn just for the sake of learning, especially in organizations, in teams and stuff. We can't just go and learn something just to say, oh yeah, we ticked the box, we spent the money, we fulfilled our HR dream. It has to have meaning and purpose, right? And so whether that's on an individual level or a team organization, and so it has to be applicable. So for me, in the past while since becoming a coach, I realized that even though I love learning, not all of it is applicable, right? And so as time moves on, as time becomes more precious, as I get older, it's like, if I'm going to spend, the next 3-4 months in this course, I need to be able to apply it in some way right away. Otherwise, it's just knowledge. And as you know, you can get knowledge anywhere. You can just go to Google and find whatever you want. But so it's kind of like the person down the street who has beautiful house, beautiful garage filled with all these tools, right? They have them all lined up. They have the outline of where every tool goes so that everything has its place. But then they don't build anything, right? And so they have a toolbox full of tools, but they don't ever use them because maybe they don't want to get messy, or they just like the shiny look of it. So what is it, when you go about learning for the purpose of learning, like how is that going to apply in your life? Where is that going to show up? How can you use it to better yourself and serve your clients and whatever you're doing, right? And the other thing that you said too was what was the other thing you said? It was oh yeah, so we were talking about so I had this coach, her name was Dan Louise Williams. She was kind of like a spiritual energy coach. She made a phenomenal difference in my life. And what she said was that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, right? And so you kind of touched on that a few minutes ago, where it's, we were talking about sports coaching, right? And how, being an athlete and experiencing sports helped you in your life, right? And so, the other thing that shows up is like, if you're having relationship troubles, or you're having trouble finding behaviors that support the person that you want to be, you're showing up in certain areas of your life but not other areas of your life, that is a clear indication that there's a disconnect, right? So when we do one thing in our life, we do it in all areas. And so when you notice something showing up, the question is like, where else is this showing up in my life, right? And it speaks to those higher levels of living, beyond acquiring skill, right? Beyond learning, and beyond creating behaviors, right? And having an environment that supports that. So those are all great things, but going beyond that to notice, okay, so what is it about that's happening in my life? Why does it keep showing up? Why does this obstacle, this challenge, this block keep showing up in my life? Why can't I get over it? And so asking yourself, where else is this happening in my life? So we start to evolve into a higher realm of like, rather than trying to fix the problem on a skills basis or as a behavior, right? We go to the identity. It's like, what's the belief that's happening here that's supporting this? And you'll start to notice that it affects all areas of your life, not just one area. And so that's where I find coaching is most valuable, in that we can rather than trying to solve one thing, we can solve a whole lot of things if we elevate up into those higher identities, like our values. Who do I want to be? What's my vision? Who else benefits? So when we ask those kinds of questions, right, rather than, oh yeah, so what are your habits, right? So those are important, but those come after. So there's a nice cascading effect. So when we talk about sports and we talk about business, all those things. So having that identity, right? Having that identity as a person who loves to learn, as a person who, has a mindset of maybe winning, or a mindset of success, whatever that means for you, can really play out into all areas of your life. And so when I work with people, excuse me, those are the areas that I love to, shuffle the cards in and see what comes up.
I love that. It really is about finding the right questions, isn't it? Like, because like you were saying, like you start asking the right questions, and all of a sudden, like you're talking about, there's this cascading, this radiating effect where if you identify those first causes, those root causes of it's like, so, and I just love that, like that's one really great question too, or not even a question, it's like a good mission statement as you're beginning, or even beginning whatever stage of your journey that you're on. It's like, the way I am here is the way I am everywhere. So how is that actually happening? Let's just look at that. You don't have to draw any conclusions to start with, but just start asking those questions. Start looking in the right places. And that's where I feel strongly that a coach is so perfect. And quite frankly, I would almost say necessary, because you get a perspective on yourself that it's so hard to get on your own. You get that slightly outside yourself, slightly askew, someone who is invested in you and cares about you, but isn't you. You know, it's like they don't have that necessarily. I've talked about this before with some other coaches too, where you have an almost familial like bond when it comes to the depth of emotion and thought and connection that you can have with your coach, but you don't have any of the baggage that family might bring to that kind of insight. You know, you have someone who is professionally trained and skilled in turning those insights and their care for you into actionable tools. And again, I love that analogy of the fancy garage. That, to me, it's like perfect. I could see the light glinting off the polished tools that have probably never been used. And it's like, they're not even tools at that point. They're just toys. And what coaches do, and that's not to say there's not fun and play involved, but tools are there to work. They're there to build. They're defined by what you use them for, not by their very existence. And I love that analogy for what a coach can bring to someone's life, what a coach can offer, what a coach can bring out, I should say, in someone's life. I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're already like 20 minutes in. But if you don't mind, I don't mind going a little long today.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you just said, because I was a pastry chef for 20 years, and it was an amazing career for me. And the funny thing is that people come to me and they're like, "Oh, April, I got this tool, you know, this fancy tool." You walk into the kitchen store and they've got tools everywhere, right? But if you look at a chef who's really good at their craft, they have like one or two knives. They have one knife that they use for almost everything.
Mhm.
And they don't have anything like they can make a gourmet meal with a kitchen fork and one culinary knife,
Yeah.
right? And so while the tools are great, it comes down to, you know, how you use them, right? So you can have one great tool, you can have, just a small set of really great questions, and be able to dig really deep into someone's to help someone, right? So it's really interesting that as coaches, I did this when I first started, right? It's like, oh, I want to know all the tools and how to apply them. And yeah, they have their time and their purpose, but when it comes down to the basics, it's just asking those powerful questions. I call them powerful questions, and and that bring out the essence of what this person's trying to achieve, and guiding them towards their own inner intelligence that's constantly with them. And so I have this thing where, it's the ego. We all wear these ego masks, right? That we wear in society.
Yeah.
We wear them in our families, we wear them in our communities, we wear them at work. But beneath all that, at the core, is your inner intelligence, which is timeless and unchanging, right? And so being able to remove that mask, right? And you kind of alluded to it, but like shining the mirror. As a coach, we shine the mirror back on the person so that they can actually see what they're saying. They can hear themselves speak, and that has the ability to like just remove all that ego mask that keeps us safe, right? It keeps us safe from harm. It keeps us, there's a lot of bias stuff that, we could go into on that, but it keeps us safe, right? And so being in a relationship with a coach where you have the ability to unlock a person's opportunity to let down that ego mask and tap into that inner wisdom, that inner intelligence, it's like a big deal, because not everybody can do it, right? Like not everybody has the capacity at this time, in this place in our existence, to do that, right? And so finding the type of people who are actually willing to go on that hero's journey that we talked about earlier, is a gem, right? Like that's really, really special, because people say, oh yeah, I need to change, I need to do this, I want to do that, I want to be better. But there's only a small percentage of all those people who say that, who actually step up and are willing to self-examine, and do the work to get the results, right? So having, so being a coach and working with people in that realm, in that domain, is really, really special. I think it's precious, you know, honestly. I think it's precious because it's rare that someone is willing to step up and do the work and make the changes necessary to elevate themselves, elevate their families, and elevate, you know, their existence and their communities and this in society.
Let's talk about some of those people. Let's talk about the work. In some of the nuts and bolts of your coaching business. I've been kind of stumbling on different ways to ask this question, and I found one that I've kind of liked recently. Who do you coach, and how do you coach them? The who being just like what kind of, like, not necessarily individuals, but like what areas of their lives do you coach them in? Personal, professional, life, relationship, all of the above. And then how being more about whether you focus on one-to-one coaching, where it's like just the one-on-one relationship where so much of the real magic can happen. Do you have any group coaching, whether it's a smaller group that you coach, like maybe in like a mastermind, or just sort of like just a small group that comes together, maybe united by common goals, for coaching? Do you do, I mean, obviously you're a speaker, so you do, like, you know, keynote speeches, you've co-authored 4 books, so you clearly have a lot of different ways to get your coaching out there. But yeah, talk a little bit about who you coach and how you coach them these days.
I coach leaders. I coach people who are leaders. So mostly business leaders, right? So entrepreneurs, small business people, executives, and they generally are self-motivated. They're already self-motivated, right? So we just talked about that. And a lot of them have rich lives outside of work already, and they want to create more balance. They want to communicate better. They want to motivate not only themselves, but inspire, you know, motivation and action in others. So they want to influence, right? A lot of them are athletes, just, recreational athletes. They have some sort of passion outside of their work that keeps them grounded and focused. And yeah, they're motivated. They're motivated to be better people, right? And so that, excuse me, that shows up in their personal lives, like I said, in their personal lives and in their work as well. So, oftentimes it'll be like a communication question at work, but it'll show up in all areas of their lives, right? And so we decide where we want to focus, right? And then it's like, let's watch and see what happens, so to speak, and what actions we can take to support, the behaviors that we want to achieve, and the person that we want to be, the identity that we want to be. So I work a lot on identity level. So if you are a leader, like what does a leader need to be, right, in order to fulfill their commitment to leadership, right? So, you look at, you talked about basketball, you look at NBA stars, right? Those NBA stars who are the top 1%, they do certain things. Like if you look in any professional sport, those top athletes are top athletes because they don't do what all the other athletes do, right? So they're not doing all the stuff that the other athletes are doing. They're doing something different. So working on that identity level, what is it that sets you apart as a leader, that makes you special, that makes you stand out, and has a high value proposition for people, for organizations? What is that? So how much of that do you want to adopt? What do you need to be? So I really love that, working on that identity level, and it brings in values as well, and your vision, and ultimately it's how you give back to the world, right? So as a leader, we can achieve lots, but eventually it's got to flip, right? We got to flip that and start elevating others, right? Because that's to me, that's the ultimate. So that's who I coach. How I do it right now, I'm about to start a 2 years master's program at Royal Roads University in leadership. So I'm going to be quite busy with that, but I do have room in my calendar for one-on-one coaching. I love one-on-one coaching, the deep dive. So depending on the person, we can work like in an hour-long session over a series of sessions, or, if people, you have to meet people where they're at. And so I just meet people where they're at. So I don't have like a set formula for how the coaching conversation unfolds, but rather like if you just want like a half an hour session, let's just do that, or you want an hour long or whatever. So I work with people how they want to be worked with, and what's going to get them their best outcome. So one-on-one coaching, I do team coaching, and I'm thinking about putting together a group program. I don't have a group program at the moment, but that's definitely one thing that I want to do. So elevating leaders towards that identity that's going to get them the results that they need in their business and their life. And the third thing where you can get a hold of me is aprilqureshi.com. And hopefully Kevin will write that out for you in the show notes.
Yes, spelled correctly. I've gone very carefully, and now it's like now I have your name like burned into my brain from misspelling it maybe 6 times.
Well, you pronounced it perfectly at the beginning there. That was awesome. So
I practiced.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I think did I answer all your questions?
You did. Actually, I did want to definitely your website, aprilqureshi.com, and we'll have that in the show notes. I also like to ask too sometimes, do you have a preferred like social media where you like to not just have people find out more about you, but where you like to engage with people? I know a lot of people will have like for a lot of coaches, it's LinkedIn just because it's a really good place to kind of start relationships. Some people prefer Instagram depending on how they like to put themselves out there. Do you have a preferred social media?
For my business, I'm on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn, and happy to chat. Send me a message. Say that you heard about me on Kevin's awesome podcast. I do have Instagram and Facebook, but it's mostly personal stuff. So if you want to get to know me on a personal level, mostly what I do on the weekends, it's mostly gardening and sports. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook. And and I have a YouTube channel, which I want to revamp, but anyway, there's lots of meditation videos on my YouTube channel. As a meditation teacher, I love that aspect of self-development. So yeah, so there you go.
I love it. And just so I just want to go ahead and like tell the audience, in case you can't tell, April is an absolute delight to chat with. Like I'm relaxed, attentive is how I feel right now. And you put like, I was gonna say you put me there. Like I come obviously very ready and willing to like be an active listener, but man, you are easy and fun to talk to. And I hope the audience is picking up on that because it's amazing. You should reach out to April, stalk her on social media, find out about her gardening, but definitely connect with her on LinkedIn. Definitely go to her website and find out more about what she has to offer. It's been great, April. Thank you so much for being on the pod. I should let you go. We've already been on for so much longer than usual. We may have to come back and do a part 2 at some point.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'd love to do that. My smile, if you can't see it, it's like huge right now, you guys. Full face smile up to the eyes. So yeah, appreciative of our time together here today, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I feel like sore cheeks from smiling is a good indicator that I just had a good conversation.
That's awesome. I love it.
Well, thank you, April. Thank you to the audience, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.
That sounds great. Thank you, Kevin. Bye now.